Welcome back to Tennessee Homestead. This is Rich. Finally getting started on that video series. So you really want to be a homesteader. Here in part 1 we're going to cover 3 simple things. 1. Get your family on the same page so that everybody understands that you want to move forward to be a homesteader. And you want your family involved, and you want them together with you. And you want them to help build this dream. Or not. There's always that possibility too. If your family's not on board, especially your spouse. No point in continuing. Stop where you're at. Settle with a big garden. Okay? 2. Once you have decided that no, we want to do the homesteading lifestyle, and your spouse is on board, and you're now talking about, okay, homesteads today. Well, let's do a little history. Used to be a homestead was what they called the small family farm. They went for self-sufficiency, primarily for survival. Okay? You needed to provide your own meat, eggs, dairy, whatever, and hopefully produce a little extra so that you could sell or barter to get things that you didn't and couldn't make on the farm. That used to be a homestead. Today's version of homestead is anything from a garden in the backyard to small farm, sometimes fairly large farm. These are important terminologies, because you may be thinking, I want a homestead, and your wife gets on board with it, and she's thinking a small house in the country with an acre or 2 to take care of, and you're thinking a 50-acre farm. You need to be on the same page. So once you've decided that that's a lifestyle that you want to make that change to a more simpler life, and I want to stress, simpler does not mean easier. Okay? So once you're on the page of, okay, we want to do a homestead, it's time to decide what kind of homestead that's going to be. What kind of time frame do you want to be if your goal is, let's say, to become a self-sustained, off-the-grid, working farm? How long do you think that's going to take you to do? 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, 30 years? Now, to tell you truthfully, it's an ongoing process. Never ends. But you're going to want to set certain goals. In 10 years, I want to be able to totally feed my family without us having to go to the grocery store. That's realistic. In 5 years, I want to be pretty much off the grid. I have wind, solar, whatever for electricity, a lot of wood, wood stoves, so forth. That's a realistic expectation. Okay? So once you get that laid out, what kind of time frame are you looking at? Okay? What's your end goal? What are you looking for? At the end of the day, you have to have that end goal. Then you can establish a plan. Okay? Now don't get too neck deep in planning while you're still sitting in an apartment in the urban area, or a small house in suburbia, because those plans, trust me, if you spend much time making those kind of plans, they're going to get thrown out the window probably in the first 6 weeks when you set foot out there on that land. It is what it is. Your first plan should be, how much land do we need to accomplish our goals. Goal setting, how much land? Get realistic. A beef cow, you're going to need approximately of decent land, 1.5 acres of ground for one cow. Okay, and you're probably going to have to supplement. Okay, been at this long enough to know that with droughts and different things that come through, you're a lot safer to have at least 2.5 acres per cow. That's one cow. Okay, to have beef coming into your freezer on a regular basis, you got to breed that cow. Okay, now there's ways you can do that without having an additional bull. You know, you can AI it, you can have embryo implants, which you might as well buy a bull because that's way expensive. You can see if you got a neighbor in the area that will let you throw your cow out there with his bull. Some will, some won't. You can also, look into scenarios there's available for people to rent bulls, where, for a few $100 you can have that bull on your property for 90 days. So, there's a lot of options with that, but that's for one beef cow. Now you're going to have to go through the gestation period and blah, 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 before you get a calf on the ground, and you got to raise that calf. Now you got basically 2 cows just to get one into the freezer. And that's for beef. Now let's talk dairy. Same scenario. So to have a dairy cow and a beef cow, to where you got a solid run of beef, now you're up to about, 5 to 10 acres. 5 acres would be way too little. You're getting a 10. And that way, through good times and bad, you're not out here having to spend a small fortune in feed, because feed will eat you alive. Plus the quality of the animal, that green stuff that grows in those pastures is absolutely the best thing you can feed. Contrary to the U.S. That's the best thing you can feed a cow. That's what they eat. Cows eat grass, period. Grain is not necessarily good for cows. It screws with the rumens. Okay? Especially in dairy cow. And you'll notice that most dairy feed is so loaded up with corn and so forth, it's amazing. I see those girls out there on dairy feed, and they're passing that corn right through their system. They're so loaded up with it. It's a good way to have problems with your milk. You're going to be having to pasteurize it, because it's not going to be real safe for you to drink, because they got too much acid in their stomachs from all the corn. Cows don't have a lot of acid in their stomachs, so any bacteria that gets passed through their system, if it's not used to living in acid. That's the reason human beings have been drinking raw milk for eons without a problem. Then suddenly commercial dairies came along, and they no longer would manage their land to where they could have the grass for cows, and thus came the dairy feeds, and thus came the problems, and thus came pasteurization. And now we have super pasteurization. But that's a whole different can of worms. Not going to get into it, but basically you're drinking water. All the nutrients is gone. They end up putting vitamins back in. Stuff's worthless. Why spend your money on it? Anyway, so once you figure out how much land you're going to need, okay, now your plans and dreams may say, well, I got to have 50 acres. I can't afford 50 acres. Well, how old are you? In your mid-20s, early 30s? Don't. Get a place you can afford. Preferably one that's run down a little bit. Roll up your sleeves, fix it up, improve it, do what you can. As far as, maybe have a cow or maybe, goats or whatever. Sharpen your skills. You're going to need those skills. Without them, you're going to fail. With them, you can succeed. I can't tell you what's going to work on your farm. Exactly. I can tell you what works on mine. I can tell you what I've seen work on others. Will it work on yours? Don't know. Don't know what your soil's like. Don't know what your contour of your land's like. Every farm's different. Keep that in mind. So once you get your goals, that's going to dictate what you need as far as what you're looking for in land and so forth. And you work your plan from there. How do I acquire my land? Best advice I can give you. Best advice. Don't go deep in debt. If you do, you will pay the price. Out here, stuff happens. And it happens way too frequently, sad to say. You're dealing with nature. And nature has a way of throwing you curves. And it does it all the time. We kind of laugh and refer to it as God keeping you on your toes. Just when you think you got this all figured out, stand by, here comes the curveball. Okay? You learn to roll with it. So get your family on board. Get a long-term goal of where do you want to be. Stop with that. Now back up and say, for my long-term goal, how much land do I need? Okay, if you can afford to get it, get it. If not, take baby steps. Get a place. There's where your planning comes in. That's where your planning needs to stop. And then for each farm that you have, you're going to have a separate plan. What's your goal? I want to get the house fixed up. I want to get the landscaping looking good. I want to get fresh paint on the barns. I want to get some fencing in. And I want to get it sold at a profit. If that's your baby step. There's your goals. There's your plan. Work it out. But understand, when you're dealing with nature and you're dealing with a homestead, debt is not a good thing. The more debt you carry, the harder it is for you to spend the time that you need on that homestead. If both the husband and wife has to work to make ends meet, I can tell you right now, that homestead's going to fail. Just a matter of time. Because it's very, very simple. You either have a hobby farm, which is not going to be successful in meeting your goals, where both the husband and wife and everything they got goes into the paying their bills. One of you needs to be there most of the time. You can work a little part-time job or something like that, but somebody's going to have to be there to keep things moving forward. It's a never-ending process. So debt's very important. That should be the number one step in any plan you lay out for acquiring land. How do we get out of debt? Talk to Dave Ramsey and guys like that. Don't go out and buy a big expensive program. There is enough information that is thrown out there online that any thinking individual can say, yeah, I can do this. Buy a book, and follow it. And it isn't easy. It gets kind of tough. You might be, changing your lifestyle a great deal. But then we come back to the question, do you really want to be a homesteader? If so, learn that homesteading is a sacrifice to a large part. You're going to sacrifice a lot of things. Getting out of debt's just one of them. You're going to need to make the sacrifices that you need to make to get where you want to get. If you're not willing to do that, I don't know how else to say it. Plant your garden on your patio or in your backyard, stay put. Because if you can't get your mind around what homesteading and farming is all about, you're destined to fail. And I'd rather you see you stay somewhere where you're successful and doing well than to make a move that causes you to have a lot of problems and possibly could even break up your family. Alright, now I'm going to leave this one on not such a positive note, but I want you to think. You need to have the conversations. You need to know what you're facing. And the rest of these videos are going to be there to kind of help you see what you're really going to face out there. This is Rich from Tennessee Homestead. I hope this finds you doing well and being happy and keeping a smile on your face. Y'all have a good day.